All right. Welcome everybody, and we really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your evening to hopefully learn a thing or two about some additional hunt opportunities. That's not too late for this year. Obviously, there's a lot of folks know at this point whether they have drawn the tags they've applied for or not. And so that's kind of what led us to where we're at now with the Huntin Fool and their knowledge and extensive research that they've done and continue to do year after year on these over-the-counter and leftover tag opportunities. So if you were one of the unlucky folks who didn't draw this year, there's still opportunities out there. So we're going to go through a bunch of those tonight with the Huntin Fool folks. Again, just want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Quick kind of housekeeping here. So just a reminder, you guys are on mute and that your videos are turned off for anybody wondering. And if you have any questions, make sure that you drop them in the Q&A at the bottom, not the chat. So make sure you're going to the Q&A portion to answer your questions or to ask your questions for us to answer at the end. Another reminder, so personal account things, like customer service related questions for your onX account or billing or anything like that, make sure you email help@onxmaps.com. It'll just be a lot more efficient way to get those questions answered for you. So we're doing a giveaway at the end of the webinar, so stay tuned till the end of the webinar to get entered. It's free, it's super easy to enter. Stay tuned for that. Also, please, if you don't mind, fill out the post-event survey. So we'll send you a survey. Let us know what you liked about the webinar, what we can do better. This is relatively new for us to provide these webinars to folks. And so we're constantly learning, and we want you guys to help shape the path for what these become. And we have a lot more webinars planned. So we'll definitely use that feedback in those. And then kind of the last one here. So if you're watching this after it's live, you will be able to go watch it on YouTube and a few other spots. If you're watching it after it's live, June 23rd, obviously the Q&A will be closed, as will the giveaway. So just wanted to run through a few things there. We can jump to the next slide and then introduce ourselves and get into some leftover opportunities. So I'll go first. Dylan Dowson with onX. I've been with onX for going on 8 years now. Grew up in Montana. I still am a resident in Montana. So I've hunted a lot in Montana, and thanks to the help of these two gentlemen who are about to introduce themselves and the rest of the crew at Huntin Fool, I'm started to expand into some other states and really just learn what I need to do to be successful in getting those tags, and so on and so forth. So, they are definitely a key element to that for me, and I know they're going to provide a lot of insight for you guys as well. Garth, if you want to jump in next.
Yeah, so my name is Garth Jensen. I'm a lifelong resident of Utah. I've probably been floating around trying my hand at various states out west now for the past 22 years, something like that. I've been working with Huntin Fool for about the last 7-8 years. Trying to do just what we're doing now, trying to assess how many tags I get every year and try to put more in my pocket, and just spend as much time as I can out and about. That's about it, I guess.
And I'm Austin Atkinson, also work here at Huntin Fool. I've been here about 7 years. I grew up in Arizona. So I grew up in the big city in the desert and eventually wound up here raising my family in southern Utah. But if you only hunt in your home state, you're probably short on hunting opportunities. So I try to get out and cover as many states as possible as the budget will allow. So glad to be here. Hopefully we can give you guys some good ideas on hunts you haven't thought about for this year.
Cool. So I'll go over this slide and then kind of kick it back to these gentlemen. So if you're not aware of what you have with an onX Elite membership, you're definitely going to want to pay attention here. So if you have an onX Hunt Elite membership, you actually have access to the digital membership with Huntin Fool. So nothing additional. All you have to do is go to our website, find that landing page with Huntin Fool, and then go ahead and get that digital membership signed up for. So what that entails, their e-magazine, the previous tag holder list, the endorsed outfitters that they use and work with, bunch of hunt giveaways. You know, there's all sorts of things that come with that. And again, with no additional cost. So if you're an onX Hunt Elite member, you have access. So definitely take advantage of that. And then, as you can see, this is the 4th webinar that we've done with Huntin Fool. And so, you know, the first one we did how to build a Western hunting strategy, a deep dive on elk, and then a deep dive on Colorado specifically. If you guys want to watch those, they're still available. All you have to do is go to the onX Hunt YouTube and scroll down, and you'll be able to actually watch those pre-recorded webinars just like you guys are on right now. So definitely worthwhile spending the time to go through those. A ton of information was chatted on those. And then again, this is the 4th and last one we have scheduled, but who knows, we might add another 1 or 2 depending on schedules and how many tags Austin and Garth here end up with for the year. So with that, I'll kind of kick it back to you guys and let you guys run through your slides.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. Well, like we say, it's almost the end of June, and if you don't have a tag in your pocket or enough tags in your pocket, there's really no excuse. There are still quite a few opportunities out there, and that's what we're going to expose tonight so that you can see what you may be missing or you didn't know existed. Oftentimes we field calls from our subscribers that say, hey, I just am waiting for the draws to come out and then I'm going to plan my fall. Well, you might not have anything to do. So you need to plan and consider these opportunities so you can hunt more. These opportunities are dwindling in some states or getting more difficult to obtain. So someday, I don't know how far in the future, there may not be over-the-counter and leftover options in some of these states we're going to talk about. So there's no reason to continually put this off. We want you to go this year if you can. So,
well, I was just going to say that's the biggest thing that I've learned in the last X amount of years that I've been doing this is things go away. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we could have went and hunted the Kaibab over the counter for archery, or the Arizona Strip archery over the counter. That went away. You know, it's just everything keeps moving that direction, and with more and more increase on people that are getting out in the field, puts more pressure on the resource, and they have to put in restrictions. So if you don't do it now, I mean, there's been a precedent set, it probably will go away.
Yep. So we'll kind of break these into 3 categories, and feel free to put in any questions you have in the question and answer, and we'll try to answer those on the fly. But we've got over the counter, which are true purchase it, no draw necessary. You buy the license or tag and you can go hunting. Now there might be a quota, but it might just be unlimited, but we consider that an over the counter opportunity. Then we have leftovers, which we're going to talk about in various states. Those are either returned, someone didn't pay for it, someone didn't pick it up. You know, it could be a good tag. It doesn't mean that it's just a tag someone didn't want, but there could have been a glitch and they didn't buy it, or for whatever reason that comes back available to us. And then the last opportunity we'll talk about is points only period, which happens in the fall on some states, where you want to get a point early so that you have it for next year and you're planning ahead. So that's kind of how we'll break our categories out, and we're going to take it state by state to keep it clear what your opportunities are. So first one is Arizona.
Yeah, and Arizona is one where we've seen a change just from last year to this year. And again, it's one of those states where it's an amazing opportunity to go down there and hunt over the counter mule deer or whitetail. It's an either or tag, just an antlered deer tag for the most part. And this is an opportunity for someone that archery hunts just to buy it over the counter. Now, as we said previously, unlimited quota, as many people wanted to buy it, could buy it. That is changing.
Yep.
And
it has changed.
It has changed. Now there's a quota in place for every single unit in the state to the amount of bucks that can be taken. Now, some of those units that have a very low population of coos deer, but mostly mule deer, it'll be an any deer quota. The other ones that have a good population of both, for the most part, they have a split quota. They have a quota for mule deer, and then they have a quota for coos deer, and that's a harvest quota. So everything you have to call in and check it in as of this year going forward. That was not the case last year. So all of this has now changed for this year.
So it's going to feel like a mountain lion hunt, if you will, where you have to continually check in, see if the quota has been met. Otherwise, it'll close the following Wednesday for all hunting. Now, your tag that you purchased, your over-the-counter tag, is good statewide. So if your unit closes down, you can turn and go to the next open unit. But the days of just planning a hunt to go down there, you realize you got to start checking ahead, because most of these units have an August season when it's still hot and dry, and then they'll have a December season and then a January season. Well, the harvest quota does not reset in those season dates. It's the whole seasonal year quota. So if people really get after it and kill those bucks in August, it's going to shut those units down, and they will not have a late season. And we're accustomed to always planning a coos deer hunt in December or January with our bows in Southern Arizona. Well, realize you may have to be flexible on the unit, or there is a chance that all the quotas are filled in the units you want to hunt, and you're left holding the bag with a tag in hand and nowhere to hunt.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if it was me and I wanted to hunt mule deer down there, because the mule deer quotas are pretty tight in most areas, I would probably make sure I was going sometime around the first part of that first season in August, September.
Yep.
There's a good chance there's not going to be very much quota left over for mule deer going into those late seasons. And that's in most units, I would say. They were pretty conservative with the quota this first go around. Who knows? They might get more in there the following year. But if you're planning on hunting a December or January hunt, I would probably pay more attention to coos deer units when you start planning around that flexibility and deciding where and when you can go.
Yep.
One thing I would say is, if you're planning your trip down there, because the way they conduct these quotas, anything that goes onto those quotas when it comes in, it's based on, they keep a real-time tally of that, but they won't close that unit down until the Wednesday following when that quota is filled. So even if that quota is filled Tuesday night or Wednesday day, that quota at the end of the day, Wednesday, is filled. No more hunting in that unit for that species. So look at it as a 7-day opening, like opening day is Thursday. Once you hit Thursday, you have from Thursday till the following Wednesday before that quota can before that unit can actually be closed due to the quota.
Yep. So adjust your schedules accordingly.
Yeah. And just make sure, I mean, the one thing, that quota carries over into January, but you do have to buy a new tag or a new 2023 tag the 1st of January. And there's going to be some other changes, it sounds like, coming down the pipe to buy those tags, but Arizona hasn't quite fleshed that out yet.
So look at that early. Obviously, we consult all the time to members, onX Elite members, on how to hunt Arizona, how to pick a unit, which ones are good to go to, but realize it's a new system and we can no longer go there the way we used to.
It's an awesome hunt. I mean, that buck right there I shot last year took me only a month of Sundays to kill. So
but you got it done.
I got it done.
That's that just attests to your guys' statement of, not that this has gone away, but it's starting to go that way, right? It's trending, it's getting more limited, and eventually, who knows, that could be a draw instead of an OTC. And this is personally a hunt that I've talked about doing for the past 2 years and haven't done. And especially hearing the quota system and kind of where it's going, it's like, okay, if I want to do this hunt, I need to quit talking about it and start just making it happen. So yeah, this is, that's news to me, definitely, the changes here. And yeah, I think you can kind of see where it's headed.
Yep.
Yeah.
That kind of covers Arizona on what we wanted to touch on there. Next state that has some neat opportunities, if you're into hunting deer, is honestly California. Now, this is a state where you can throw in archery or rifle, the deer tag and your hunt license. You're going to be about $500 into it. And you can go over there and hunt the mule deer, the hybrid type deer, or true blacktail deer west of I-5. And each zone will have a quota, but most of those quotas are going to be open to purchase into the first part of August. So if you really want to check that blacktail deer off your list, I know that's on my list, you can purchase that, go over there. Your big hangups, obviously, it's California you got to deal with. So you got to have non-lead ammo if you're going to hunt rifle. Archery, most of those seasons open up pretty early and you can go do it. Now you can actually buy a second deer tag and you could have 2 deer tags in your pocket and you could add a bear tag as well. And for over-the-counter spot and stop black bear, it's probably one of the best opportunities that's out there still in the fall.
Yeah, you'll probably have to pass on bears while you're hunting deer if you don't want to take the time to take care of that bear, because you'll probably see as many bears as you do deer. Now, like there is a quota when it comes to the rifle tags in some of those zones, and they do have a pseudo quota for that archery only tag, but that AO tag in California, I don't think they ever sell out. So there's, if you were only looking at archery, you're not on as much of a time crunch to get in there and buy those, zone specific type general tags. But yeah, they do have a quota, but yeah, it's amazing for bears.
It is. And that probably won't last forever.
Nope. Nope.
Hey, your favorite state, Garth?
It is my favorite state. And it's the last of a dying breed for over-the-counter elk tags. So Colorado, the reason I love Colorado is because they do offer over-the-counter elk for archery and rifle. And obviously archery, we're getting fewer and fewer. That is something that I can definitely see going forward. It's not going to last forever. The more units they take away, obviously the more pressure that's going to put on the units remaining in the state. And then they're just going to have to close down those units. And we saw it this year with 80 and 81. So like prior, a couple of those archery units down in the southwestern part of the state, they closed those units down because of recruitment problems, basically because they weren't getting the recruitment, and it's a either sex tag. So the over-the-counter archery tag is either sex. You can harvest either a antlered bull or a cow. Now, they closed those down because they were a little bit worried about the amount of cows that could be harvested on those. But the first unit that got closed down due to hunting pressure, or not closed down, but moved into the draw because of hunting pressure, was 8081. It's still an either sex tag. They were not necessarily concerned about harvesting cows in there or over harvesting cows. They were concerned with the amount of hunting pressure on the unit. So that to me is just a signal of what is going to come forward, or what they're going to do moving forward in the rest of it. But still an awesome opportunity. I know there's a lot of talk out there about, man, there's too many people in the field, they're just too congested, I don't want to bother with Colorado archery elk. But realistically, it is an over-the-counter tag, and you have to kind of get your expectations set in place and have solid expectations about what this hunt is about. And more or less, it's about getting out in the field, having an opportunity to chase elk in September, possibly run into some great opportunities. And I've seen some awesome bulls in there. Yeah. But to be honest with you, I would be happy with a raghorn bull on that hunt. So good opportunity there. As far as the rifle hunt goes, once you get into the rifle hunts, second and third seasons, those are your 2 over-the-counter hunts. All the other rifle hunts, first and fourth, are limited. And we'll talk about those leftover tags later on. But all of these tags we're talking about are classified as A tags. And the only other caveat I will say, you can only have one A tag for a certain species that year, but they do have B tags. There is over-the-counter units where you can have a cow tag as well for archery. So you can buy an over-the-counter archery cow tag that's classified as a B tag. They're in select units. It's not in all the same units that actually has A tags. So you have to kind of read the regulations and figure out which ones those pertain to. But for the most part, you got the second and third rifle for antlered, and then you have an either sex over the counter for archery, and amazing.
Now, one of the questions, Garth, that comes up a lot is the map is overwhelming of all these units I can hunt in. I buy a second rifle tag, or I buy an archery tag, how do I go about narrowing down a unit that I want to hunt?
Take the front range. Everything east of that says it's open. Don't go there. No elk, too much
Talking
private
about
land.
like I-25
Yes.
east.
Everything east of the front range, just don't even bother with that. So narrow it down already at half. So you've got half the state to work with. Realistically, this is what I like to tell people. There's not a huge difference from unit to unit to unit based off of sizable or, trophy potential. That's not what this is. The way I narrow it down is I try and figure out what kind of amenities do I want? Do I want to stay in a hotel? Do I want to camp? Do I want a backpack? First thing I'll look at that, and then, okay, I can kind of narrow it down from there. Then, okay, is this a unit that has a lot of roads, or is this going to enable me if I really want a backpack hunt and I want to go 2 to 4 or 5 miles back in there? This is a unit that's going to let me do that. Then you can kind of separate that from that extent. From there, it's a little bit more fine tuning, but realistically, you're not going to have one unit that is far superior than the other. I think, in my opinion, what makes a unit far superior than the other ones is your knowledge of that unit. And the only way you're going to gain that is by getting in the unit, hunting it, taking notes, figuring out where those animals are when they get pushed, figuring out where they are at the first of the hunt when they're not pushed. Things like that is going to separate and make it a better unit for you. But if there was 1 or 2 or 3 units out there that were over the counter that was superior to the rest, like, they would just get hunted out because everyone would go there. And that's not really the case. And maybe one other tip, if there's a large town next to it, like Steamboat or Colorado Springs or something like that, there's probably going to be a bunch of hunters in there. Like, so just keep that in mind when you're in there. If you're looking at areas that don't have a large population, that might be less hunters.
I think, tell us, to be clear, Garth, what animal can I kill with a rifle tag?
So
what are my antler restrictions? And there's a few questions about that. 9
out of 10 times, I will say it's going to at least be 4 points or better is what's legal, or a bull that has a 5-inch brow tine or longer. So if you've been out in the woods much, you'll see these 2-year-old raghorns that have 2 brow tines and a spike. They're 3 points. So under that 4-point classification, they wouldn't be legal. So they threw in that 5-point or longer brow tine. So you can still take and harvest a 2-year-old bull. Basically what they're saying is, we don't want you to harvest the yearlings. You need to wait till they're 2. So those are the 2 antler restrictions you have over there. But there are some units that don't adhere to that. And you have to go down through and look at the regulations. And some of them will be any antlered. Most of your over-the-counter are not that way. It's not until you get into the limited entry units. There's some limited quota units that is any elk, or any antlered elk. So for the most part, that's what it is.
One thing different about Colorado, depending on what state you're from, you may be used to buying like a hunting license and then the permit or tag to kill the animal. And Colorado is often confusing because you do not have to buy a pre-qualifying license unless you're applying in the draw earlier in the year. Then they make you buy a small game license to be eligible for the draw. When it comes down to over the counter in Colorado, none of these licenses are available till after August 2nd. And they just call it a license. You don't have to have that small game pre-qualifier. You simply purchase the elk license and it'll add a habitat stamp on there and you're good to go. There's no pre-qualifier if you're just buying over the counter.
And August 2nd, in my opinion, is kind of an arbitrary deadline.
Yeah.
Because these are unlimited tags. They don't limit the amount of archery tags or rifle tags they sell. So I use this as a last minute planning. You might be planning on that hunt, but you don't have to buy the tag until you go. And honestly, you can show up midway through the archery hunt or the rifle hunt for that fact. As long as you go down to a division office and purchase the license, that's the only thing. Before the season starts, you can purchase that at any division office or licensed retailer.
That's right. So that covers Colorado over the counter. We'll touch on the Colorado secondary draw and leftover a little bit later in this presentation. Next state for over the counter is a lovely state of Oregon.
That's your favorite.
Oh yeah. You know, we've lost a lot of opportunities over the past couple of years on the east side of Oregon. There was quite a few archery opportunities for Rocky Mountain elk and for mule deer. Eastern Oregon, most all of that has gone to a draw now. And so you've got to play the game and play the point game. The biggest opportunity for this year, if you want to plan a hunt in Oregon, I like to look towards the western portion of the state for Roosevelt elk or black-tailed deer. It's probably got some of your most accessible land to hunt Roosevelt elk on your own. You do have to buy a hunt license and a general elk tag. Those aren't going to sell out. And you get about the whole month of September to hunt archery. The rifle hunt, they push way late, pretty tough unless you know where you're going there. But archery during the rut for Roosevelt elk in the thick forested country of Western Oregon, pretty neat opportunity if you don't have an elk hunt somewhere else. You can do the same thing for deer. You can buy this license and tag when you go out there, any vendor or online before you go. That's also valid Western Oregon, same dates. So you could theoretically go hunt Roosevelt elk and black-tailed deer, you know, west of I-5 or close to I-5 and have a good time.
Yeah, it's something I would like to do one of these days. I have never done it, but I am intrigued by it. And especially with a lot of these other ones going away, that one, it just doesn't appear that that Western Oregon elk or deer is in danger of going away anytime soon, but you never know.
It's still tough, right?
Yeah, I was actually just over in that country for the very first time a couple of weeks ago on a bear hunt with Born and Raised Outdoors, and it's amazing country. Like it's I felt like I was in the Amazon rainforest as we were looking for bears and stuff, and we saw a handful of elk and blacktail, and yeah, it definitely gave me the itch to try and go over there and pick up one of these tags.
I might jump in your backpack when you decide to go.
Let's do it. Let's plan a trip.
All right, let's jump to the next state over the counter, Utah, our home state.
Yeah, Utah is not known for their over-the-counter elk by any stretch. We're known for big bulls that you can never draw the tag for, but they do have some pretty cool hunting. I mean, I'll be honest with you. They have two different types. They have a spike bull, and then they also have a innie bull. Now, the innie bull, well, both of them, we'll just start off with rifle.
Okay.
Both of them have a quota. So they go on sale this year, July 14th. But there is a certain quota. Now, everyone flocks to the innie bull because, you know, they just have dreams of shooting big branch antler bulls, and they heard there's big bulls in Utah. One thing to realize about these innie bull units, they are not managed for older age class bulls. They are managed for the most part, low populations, or they have these units that are broke down that are primarily comprised of private land. And so realistically, in order for Utah to be able to control the population on there, they would have to go through landowners to do that anyways. So they give these landowners the opportunity to buy these tags and conduct hunts on their own. So just know that going into it, really the Uinta Mountains is the only one that's a viable option for the most part. There's some public land and some of these other units that you can hunt if you figure them out and know where to go and play that fence line and border. I know you've played it before, but Uinta Mountains is really the only one. And like it's a good hunt, but just know going into it that that's where a lot of the innie bull rifle elk hunters are.
How would you compare that opportunity to go into Colorado? If a guy's sitting here say, I'm willing to pack in, go to the backcountry, I want to hunt elk, say with a rifle, should they go to Colorado or Utah? What should they consider?
The population in Colorado far supersedes that on the Uinta Mountains. And you've got so many more to select from as far as units, mountain ranges, things like that in Colorado. I mean, I would go to Colorado all day, every day over that Uintas, just because I think you have a lot better chance of finding an older age class bull, or at least a 3-year-old bull, something like that, where realistically, I mean, you're going to run into the same amount of people in both, like both are going to be congested.
Yeah.
So Colorado would be my pick, and I live in Utah.
Now, what if you're willing to hunt spike or cow? You're an archery hunter, you haven't hunted elk much, and you want to get in the thick of elk. I think the spike hunt is a good, fun hunt.
It's my favorite hunt, and when I choose to go over the counter elk every year, that's the units I go to. Basically, what you have is these spike tags, and for rifle, they limit at 15,000, which is a smaller quota, but it takes what 2 or 3 days, 4 days last year to sell out. So the any bull tags will sell out fast. Like they sold out within 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yep.
And that's basically because they couldn't sell out any faster based off how slow the division website was running. But the 15,000, they sell a little bit longer because it's a spike elk, you know, and most guys aren't interested in hunting a yearling bull, but those units are primarily public land. The elk numbers are in a lot better shape. The populations are better. You've got more elk in there. You've got way more public land to run around in. So your chances of harvest are a lot better. And if you look at the statistics, statistically speaking, a lot higher harvest rates on spike bull units than you have on any bull elk units.
For sure.
So in my opinion, I would rather go there because chances are on that any bull tag, you're probably going to be shooting a yearling or a 2-year-old anyways.
Yeah. But if you have never killed an elk and you really want to kill an elk, you've got a bow, you want to try it, I still think that spike hunt is a good way to go let some arrows fly. You're going to see elk. You can shoot a cow or a spike bull. I mean, that's a fun opportunity. So I would not overlook it, especially if you already have the $72 hunt license in Utah, because maybe you applied in the draw. You add that general elk permit and you're going.
And guess what? Utah, I know they really limit the quota on non-residents, but they don't have any type of quota on any of these for non-resident or residents. So it's not a split quota. They don't sell out so many to residents and so many to non-residents. And then as soon as that non-resident quota is met, they won't sell anymore. No, it's just first come, first served for those rifle tags. And there is 0 quota for the archery tag, unlimited. So you can come by that the day of. And trust me when I say, if you're going to go archery hunting and you don't want to run into people and you want to have flexibility of public land and you don't care about hunting a branch antler bull, that is by far one of the best hunts that I have went on in all of these different states for elk. I run into people, but never really competition as far as bumping in and racing people.
Yeah.
I can stalk a cow at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't matter to me because a spike and a cow are both going to eat pretty good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely a neat opportunity there. The last state we'll cover for over the counter here is Washington State. You can think about this very similar to Oregon. We're going to recommend the western portion of the state for elk. It's pretty cheap when you compare to some of these other states, and it's still an investment, but you can get an elk and deer license for $740. And you could be hunting, mid-September, chasing Roosevelt elk and black-tailed deer, in the jungles of Western Washington. That's a pretty neat opportunity if Roosevelt is on your list. There's quite a bit of public land, or there's a lot of timber company land that you can jump through a few hoops and get access onto that land and hunt as well. But if blacktail or Roosevelt are on your list, definitely look to that western portion. If you want to hunt whitetail or mule deer in Washington, you're going to look more towards the eastern portion or the central portion of the state. And if those dates work for you and you want to burn some money going to Washington and trying it out, I wouldn't recommend driving all the way across the country just to go to Washington. But if you live a little bit closer and you want another opportunity, this state, let's throw some money their way and go.
Yeah.
Would you go to Oregon or Washington for Roosevelt, Gar?
Oregon.
I probably would too. And honestly, for me, a black-tailed deer, I want to hunt true blacktails, west of the I-5. I would probably go to California at this point and go on a rifle hunt there in the high country. That's my personal, what I would choose.
Yeah. And I mean, they have, like, say, Oregon, that west portion, I mean, there is some really good blacktail hunts over there right now too. I mean, most of them rifle hunts are in the draw, so you have to get, but they're not tough to draw.
Yeah. There was a question that came in about Idaho. How come you didn't talk about Idaho on Over the Counter? Well, there's a reason here, and we'll show you shortly. So don't think we just straight up missed that one.
It's a pseudo draw.
Okay, now we're gonna shift a little bit from over the counter opportunities to leftovers, other draws. There's a lot more hype around these leftovers than there used to be, and for good reason, as we'll show you. For example, right now, Colorado has thousands and thousands of licenses that were either not picked up, not claimed, or undersubscribed in the draw. Now, you're not going to see the Primo tags in there, but you're going to see tags on the Colorado list that take quite a few points for a non-resident to draw.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they open up a secondary draw. The deadline to apply there is July 5th. So we've got a little bit of time, and anybody can apply, even if you didn't apply in the earlier draw. It looks real attractive. They don't use your points if you draw. It's like, why doesn't everybody apply for this? Well, that's Colorado's ploy. They want everybody to apply for these because you pay your $9 to enter again. But the small wording says they give 100% preference to youth. So we get this question a lot. Which hunt should I pick for the secondary draw? Well, as Garth always says, if there's public land in that unit, it's probably going to go to a youth, because the youth get literally 100% preference, meaning they'll look at all 4 choices of a youth application before they consider any adults that applied. You literally are drawing dead or drawing with 0% chance if youth applied in front of you. Kudos to Colorado for supporting their youth, but don't sit there as an adult thinking you've got a chance at a lot of these licenses that are available.
From what I've seen, if it's archery, sometimes you have a window, because it seems like there's fewer applications when it comes to archery, elk, things like that. Muzzleloader, you see somewhat of the same thing, or you're going to have to look for a unit that's kind of off the wall a little bit, maybe isn't as popular. So when you're looking at it, or if you're looking at some of those archery tags that say have 10, 15 plus tags available, even 8, but if it has 1 to 5 tags and it's even remotely talked about unit, or even has any type of public land, rest assured it's going to go. And if it's a rifle tag, especially, like it's
going to go youth.
Yeah, it'll go youth.
So I would say if you have a youth hunter in your family or friends, and they do not have a Colorado license this year for elk, deer, or antelope, they should really get on this. They pay $1 for their small game qualifying license and $9 to enter the draw. Like, that's pretty dang cheap, and you can get them in on some good hunts. So apply your youth for the secondary draw. If you're an adult, you can throw some money at it, but I would not have high hopes. The adults are going to be mainly looking towards what we call leftover day, and that's going to be August 2nd as well. So anything that is not awarded in the secondary draw or is returned between now and then, for whatever reason, someone returns a license, they're going to give us that list in late July. And then August 2nd, it's going to be a chaos on the Colorado Parks and Wildlife website, but whoever can check out the fastest with their license will be awarded that license. No leftovers or any of these secondary draws in Colorado burns your preference points. I want to be clear about that. This is above and beyond. So all of us that do not have a Colorado license in hand already from the draw, we are always checking the leftover list to see what's going to be available starting in August.
And then after that, August 2nd, every week after that, they'll continue to populate that. I believe, is it a Tuesday night? They'll populate it.
Yep.
And then the following Wednesday at 9 or 10?
11.
At 11, they're going to populate that. They're going to take the reissued list that you can see a preview of, and it'll be called the reissue list. They're going to transfer those over to the leftover. And once they hit that leftover at 11 a.m., they'll be gone within 10 seconds.
Yeah. It's a little crazy, but that'll happen all the way up till these hunts.
Even during the hunt.
Even during. Yeah, it's going to continue through November. That list will receive licenses every single week, and any license could be on there at this point. They'll try to award the license if someone returns it to the next guy who should have drawn. But if they don't feel like calling people that day, or no one answered the phone, just throw it on the list, and then first come, first serve, whoever buys it, it's theirs.
And that has to do mostly like as far as those ones where they try the next, what do you call them?
Next draw.
The first next person in line.
Yeah.
They try to call those only on hunts that took at least 6 points or more as a resident. So you really won't see any of those come up unless they don't take it. But quite often you see them come up because they might contact those people and they're like, hey, we already got plans. I'm not burning my 27 points to go over here on short notice.
Yeah.
So we're just going to put that 44 fourth rifle deer tag on the website and watch the chaos.
Yeah. It is a little chaotic, but we've had success with it. If you've got fast internet and some time every Wednesday, just set an alarm, check the list on Tuesday. If there's a license on there that's on your hot list, try to get it on Wednesday. It'll probably be worth it.
Yeah.
So neat opportunity there.
Quick question in reference to the youth in Colorado. So what age does youth have to be to hunt in Colorado? Do they have to have like hunter safety, or what is the prerequisites there for youth?
They do have to have hunter safety for sure. They don't only have a deadline, but it's under 18. And I don't know if it's under 18 for the time of the hunt or under 18 at the certain deadline of when you apply. I think it's under 18 at the time he applies, or the time of that youth applying. But I'd have to double check that. I'm not 100%, but basically under 18 is considered a youth, and they do have to have hunter education.
Gotcha. And is there like do you know in Colorado, is it like 10, 12 years old, or is it one of those states where if you're accompanied by an adult, you're good to go?
It's 12 years old. That's 12. And I would have to read the regs and find out if they have to be immediately accompanied by adult until a certain age of like 16.
Gotcha.
But I'm not 100%, but I know 12 they can apply.
But there was a question about does the adult have to have a license as well? And they don't. Like they just be with the youth hunter, but you can apply any youth for these licenses in the secondary draw, and they can hold their own license. It's important. There was another question about secondary draw. I applied in the primary draw and didn't draw. Why is the license I applied for on the secondary draw list?
And as we talked about this first part of it, between the primary draw and the secondary draw, between the time the list comes out, there is a return period. So quite frankly, some of these people got the tag. Maybe they already had other plans. Maybe they got cold feet. And for whatever reason, they surrendered that tag back to Colorado. And so they did not accept the tag. They just said, hey, I'm going to take this tag back. I'm going to take my points back, and it's a wash. Or they do have a purchase by date. And sometimes what will happen is they will draw the tag, and Colorado will send out an email. And in that email, you have to read it carefully, because it will say there's, action required.
Yep.
And so where you see that action required on your email, your successful email, basically that means that tag is not yours until you go in and buy it. So there is a 2-week window there that they allow for you to go in and buy that tag. If you don't buy it, then it just goes back into the secondary draw. And so even though you didn't draw that tag when you applied for it, that's how those like tags that required points, or, they exhausted all those permits within the first 4 choices of the primary draw. That's how those tags will come back into the secondary draw.
Yep. All right. Jump to the next state, Idaho. The question is, why did you not cover Idaho in the over-the-counter section? The simple answer is everything is sold out in Idaho and has been for months. Idaho, for non-residents, they start selling their quota the year prior on December 1st. So this is one of the first ones you're going to need to plan for next year. What they do is they have a statewide quota. They have unit by unit quota for elk and deer pressure now. So the days of just buying a license and going wherever you want in Idaho are completely over for non-residents.
Yeah.
And so December 1st, they go on sale. You get stuck in a weird waiting room. It's a very clunky online system. You have much better luck if you go to the state, if that's an option, and have someone buy it in person at a vendor. You can avoid this waiting room online, but they will just award tags as fast as they can, as fast as the system will allow, and they will sell out. Some units will last a few days, but most of the high demand, these are over-the-counter units, but they will go immediately on December 1st.
The counter.
Yes.
The problem is the waiting room is actually a draw, because you're assigned a random number. Because it's not in order of which when you logged in. They just hit a certain time frame. They kick everyone in a virtual waiting room. And if you're assigned random number 454, you're probably going to get your tag. But if you're 40,025, you ain't getting nothing.
Yep. It's kind of clunky. It makes it very hard for a party to plan a trip and make sure that everybody has an over-the-counter tag. But what we want to touch on here is the draw is still in process for the limited or the controlled hunts for elk, deer, and antelope. We expect results from that soon. Anybody who doesn't pick up or choose to purchase their draw permit or their controlled permit, they will roll to a second draw as well the first part of August. You can purchase a license and apply for those unclaimed licenses. They're going to be some good ones. They really don't go to the next guy in line. They just throw it back and run a second draw in Idaho. So anything there will be available. You have to apply by August 15th. Also, what they're doing with their over-the-counter tags, anybody who turns their tag back in, say they purchased it in December, their schedules changed, they can't make it, whatever reason,
or they drew a controlled hunt.
Or they drew a controlled hunt and they can exchange it for a better one.
Yeah.
All these over-the-counter deer and elk permits will roll back once a month. The next sale date is actually tomorrow.
No, they had one today.
Oh, no, it was today.
Yeah, they
this
had
morning.
one today.
There was very few tags on there today, but third week of July, they'll do another sale day. Anything that's returned, fastest fingers on the website gets it. And it's not a great thing, but if there is a specific unit you're hoping for a deer or elk tag there, you got to watch that once a month and see if it pops back up.
And they will have, I think, once this draw is conducted and people start to get those controlled hunts, you'll see a small influx of some of these over-the-counter tags or general tags get turned back in, and then they'll go up for sale.
That's right. I think that covers. There is an outfitter allocation quota that'll roll back July 15th. Idaho has just made a mess of all these quotas and allocations.
Yeah.
But you just have to keep watching their website, check it frequently. And if the tag you want or the unit you want pops up, you can get it there. Keep in mind, non-residents are limited to the deer unit that they purchase a tag for.
Yeah.
That's still misunderstood. You can no longer jump around. Even for elk, we get a zone and we can hunt 3 or 4 units in that zone. But for deer, you're confined to one unit and you cannot jump unit lines anymore in Idaho.
Yeah, it's even more specific.
More specific. Yep.
Oh, Montana. Man, Dylan, I wish you could take them guys a little bit behind the woodshed and just wrap them on the butt a couple times and tell them, hey, I don't know where you came up with this list, but nobody's getting these tags anymore.
Yeah, this is one of many things that I wish I could change in my home state. So yeah, we'll add it to the list if I ever get to let them know.
So what Montana has done is you had to apply back in March for a big game combination or the elk combination or the deer combination. Those are just the general licenses that Dylan and all the lucky individuals in Montana get to buy for next to nothing at the gas station. But if you're a non-resident and you want to hunt Montana, your only option now is to register for the alternate list. The deadline for that is June 30th. There is no cost to add to the list, and there's still an option to buy when the license becomes available.
Yeah.
So what they're going to do is put everybody on this list. You choose the combo, deer or elk, and then what they'll do is randomize that list. They'll tell you your position of priority on the list. So if you're in the top 500 or 1,000, there's a pretty good shot when a license gets returned, they'll just hit down the list and they give you a little window. Hey, if you want this, buy it now. If you don't want it, we're going to the next guy. So it does work. It allows them to make a little more money by reselling the unused licenses. And if you just didn't draw Montana or you want to throw that option in there, it's good. Doesn't cost you anything to be on the list. Like I always put myself on it, knowing that by late July, I probably have my schedule figured out. And if there's a hole for Montana and I get called up on the list, I'll buy it. If not, no skin.
We used to see it go. We used to see lower numbers on the list, or should I say bigger numbers. We see them roll down through those a little bit more than they do now, because now that tag is looked at as a little bit better of a tag. So, sure. You don't see it go quite as fast. So it could be that all these guys have plans and they're like, no, I'll just, I don't want the tag. They go the next guy. I don't want the tag, go the next guy. Now, more and more, we're seeing guys just grab that tag as soon as they, get to them on the list. So it's a little bit tougher to get that tag, but you're right. I mean, there's no cost to it.
Yep.
Kudos to Montana for not charging a bunch of people extra fees to get on that list. So, you know, if you have an open schedule, you just as well.
I think this is a good time to say, especially as you're e-scouting and you're planning your hunts, we need to look at planning hunts and scouting, saving locations on your onX before you even have the tag, so that it becomes an option. If you have an elk plan and you have your waypoints and your trailheads and everything saved, and then when you enroll for something like this and an elk hunt comes up 2 weeks before the season, or an elk tag becomes available, you're like, hey, I've already done some scouting there.
Yeah.
You might be more apt to jump on that license and go than if you're like, oh no, where do I start? Because a lot of these opportunities we're talking about in Idaho, Colorado, Montana, they are going to be last minute. Right? And you might not know, but one of these years you're going to go hunt there. So you might as well do it now.
Yeah, that's
Plan
right.
ahead.
That's a good point.
That was one of my takeaways when you guys were going through Colorado is I need to have a list of units for those leftover tags or drawback tags, whatever those are called, you know, have that list of units that I'm interested in if I ever am looking into that, because, you know, what you guys said, I probably don't have enough time to call Garth real quick and say, hey, Garth, is this a good tag? Is this one I should get or not? Like, it's already gone. So, you know, doing some of that research and due diligence ahead of time will pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
Next state, leftovers, Nevada. So Nevada runs a secondary draw. It just ended. I believe results come out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so there was very few tags on there. You can almost forget about the secondary draw in Nevada for all intents.
And they burn your points. So that is
Burn your
one
points.
distinction. If you apply the secondary draw in Nevada, you draw a tag, they burn your points.
That's correct. The point we want to highlight here on leftovers is this is their new system they launched last year. This is probably your greatest chance in our presentation tonight to grab a trophy or very sought after permit. What Nevada does, anyone can return their tag up to the day before their season and have their points restored. So guys have schedules changed. They don't want to go. They don't find the animal they wanted. They didn't have time to scout. Whatever reason, they can surrender this tag back to Nevada. In the past, those tags were thrown away.
Well,
If
after
they
the
were
14-day.
if they were within a 2-week window.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys wait till that window. They
That's
don't
right.
turn it in until right before their hunt opens because they thought maybe something would change. But everybody who's drawn sheep tags, elk tags, deer tags, antelope tags in Nevada, they can turn it back in. There's really, they just lose the money of the tag is all. They get their points all the way reinstated. So if it's turned in within 2 weeks of the season opener for any season, they go on a first come, first serve list. What it does then is it gets populated randomly. So if you have a Nevada account, you log in and you watch this very boring blank web page. If you have a lot of time on the computer or you have nothing to do or pay your kid to do it for you, whatever, you can watch this page and all of a sudden, boom, it turns green and says, here's a tag, you're eligible. Whoever clicks add to cart first gets it. You can purchase it.
Among thousands of people. So,
Sure.
but at least you have a chance to hurry and click it.
You got a
Like
chance.
there was a time where one popped up and I hit that thing and I could have swore like it hadn't even faded the whole green and I hit it and I was too late. So there is other people watch this. The one question I get quite often is when do I start watching? Like, how do I know what hunts are going to be about? How do I, do I start watching now after the second draw happens? It is that 2-week window he was talking about, because prior to that 2-week window, they'll just reissue that to the next alternate. But once that 2-week window hits on any hunt, so you'll start to see antelope hunts populate first. Then you'll start to see mule deer hunts, early mule deer hunts, or some elk hunts, some of those early northern elk hunts, you'll start to see some of those tags populate. So any 2-week period before the hunt is when you'll start to see those tags pop up if people turn them back in.
So what I did is I set like an alert in my calendar to start watching, the deer list 2 days before the majority of, or 2 weeks before the majority of deer hunts open. Same thing with elk. I actually picked up a bull elk tag last year off this list. A couple of us here in the office picked up deer tags antelope tags. So it does happen. They're only going to allow you to log in one session, one window this year.
Big
So
change.
you can't open 15 windows and try to grab it faster. They're trying to beat the robots or, you know, scrapers that we have on our computers. So what they're doing is one session, whoever adds it, it uses your points. If you have any in Nevada, incurs the waiting period. Like I'm in a 7-year wait now on my bull elk hunt in Nevada because I got this tag last year. But there were 7 desert sheep tags last year in the program that got turned back. 7 lucky people picked those up.
Yeah.
Over 100 elk tags and over 500 mule deer tags. So it is an opportunity. It's kind of a fun one. If you have some time on a computer or you sit at a desk a lot, they can pop up 24 hours a day in Nevada.
Another important change that, in my opinion, they did this year is once you add one of those permits to your cart, there's a 7-day waiting period before you can add another permit to your cart. So last year, a lot of guys, just as soon as this, like I tried to do, as soon as that would pop up, populate, they would add that to their cart. Then you had 5 minutes to check out. So as long as it was in your cart, you had control of that tag. So you could look at it, be like, nah, is it a tag I want? Should I call my buddy and see what he thinks about the tag? And then if you really didn't want the tag, you just turned it loose and then you went back to playing the game. You know, then another one will pop up, you'd hurry and grab it.
Yep.
This year, if you add one to your cart, you have your 7 days, you're out, regardless if you purchase that tag or don't purchase that tag.
Yep.
So that's going to, I think, clean it up a little bit as well.
Well, answer one question about a state we did not cover in leftovers, and that's Arizona. There's very few leftovers going to be available for Arizona. Virtually no leftovers for rifle coos deer hunts like used to happen in the past. There'll probably be some muzzleloader coos deer hunts left over. We won't know that till the middle of July, what's left. Any limited draw tag or draw tag that someone turned back in Arizona, they'll award it to the next guy in line who should have drawn it. And so maybe you get the call, maybe you don't.
Yeah, there might be like, with all the coos deer cuts or coos deer tag cuts they had in there this year, I don't envision any rifle hunts being left, and it's got so popular.
I don't either. Yeah. Hey, that covers leftovers, Garth. We'll touch on a few states here that you can purchase points for, because this is a good investment for next year if you want to plan early in one of those states.
And in Montana, the one thing to remember about Montana, I would not really encourage guys to purchase a preference point this year for the elk combo unless you're planning on applying in next year's draw. Because if you don't apply in next year's draw for the elk combo using your preference points, they just purge that point.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a waste of $100. I would always tell guys, especially if they're archery elk hunters, to purchase that $25 bonus point for Montana. It's well worth it. There's a lot of good archery elk hunting up there, especially like now. There's going to probably be some 1 or 2 or 3 point units that you got a real good chance at drawing since they separated 700, 900. So yeah, just remember the preference point. Don't invest that money unless you're planning on applying in 2023 or the following year after you purchase that.
Yep. Oregon has a points only period. That's really only for those that are trying to draw maybe one of those archery permits that takes a point or two. I wouldn't envision a long-term strategy on building points in Oregon, but there is a points only period open through November there where you can purchase those. Same thing with South Dakota. If that's a state that interests you for deer, bison, whatever it may be, antelope, they also have a points only period open through December 15th. And their points are pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Most important one you want to build points, probably Wyoming.
Not necessarily for moose and sheep.
No.
But the elk, deer, and antelope, yeah, definitely. That's the one I would be, it sneaks up on all of us, especially when they first started these points only periods. But Wyoming is definitely the state where you have to pay attention to, because even if you apply and are unsuccessful for elk, deer, or antelope, you're not awarded a point. Like you have to go back in during the points only period and apply for that point to gain a point for the following year. So just remember that just because you applied for a species and didn't draw it, you are not awarded a point. You have to go back in during that points only period and buy it.
That's right. There was a few questions about the leftover draw in Wyoming. If you've looked at the leftover list, you realize there are very few antlered animals or buck pronghorn permits available in Wyoming on that leftover list.
Yeah.
They run a leftover draw. The deadline is tomorrow, June
Yeah.
24th. There are a few, cow calf licenses on there for elk, you may be able to get, but if you look at the odds, the residents really flood this leftover draw and they are very difficult to draw in
And
my experience. The doe antelope, the cow and calf, very difficult.
the antlered elk are so slim. Really, all you have is those archery elk tags up around the boys, 60, 59, 56, heavily wilderness areas that non-residents can't really hunt or don't really have that much room to roam unless they have a resident that's filled out the paperwork and accompanies them, or a guide or an outfitter. And I think there's another antler tag over there, I think 125, but that's heavily private land. So that's realistically why we didn't bring that up, is because there's just very few opportunities.
Anything that doesn't go in the leftover draw for Wyoming will go, first come, first serve. I don't anticipate much making it through to that. The days of buying an antelope tag, in a mainly private land unit, and heck, you used to be able to buy 2 archery tags and go and just hunt those units in the northeast corner of Wyoming. Those days are gone. There's very few licenses left. There's nothing available for a buck pronghorn that's got any sort of public land in it.
Yeah, the only thing in there is a couple type 2s. It's private land only. And realistically, if a guy was just desperate to go antelope hunting and you're an archery hunter, you could maybe squeak out enough like HMA land or some type of walk-in access in those 2 units. You'd have to do some pretty good research. But come rifle season, gone. Archery season, you might find a couple bucks in there.
Yep.
But you got to want to go archery antelope hunt to do that.
All right. Just making sure there's no more questions on those. Let's wrap up a little bit here, Dylan.
Yeah, so we'll do, excuse me, kind of a refresher on this for any new folks on that weren't on in the beginning. Just a reminder, if you are an onX Hunt Elite member, you have access already free, no additional cost, to Huntin Fool's digital membership. So there's a bullet there, lots of great things involved with that. And actually, we will throw in a link into the chat for that that landing page on our website, so you can just go register, get yourself signed up if you haven't already, if you're an elite member. And then additionally, I know we covered this earlier, but just real quickly, this is the 4th webinar we've done with Huntin Fool. Ton of incredible information on everything from, Western hunt strategy, elk specifically, Colorado, and now over-the-counter opportunities. All of these do live on the onX Hunt YouTube channel after. So go refresh the other ones. If you want to reference the same webinar again for, I didn't get a couple notes on that slide, it will be on the onX Hunt YouTube.
We really enjoy when we see onX Elite members come and take advantage of these Huntin Fool tools. We put a lot of effort into our product to make sure that you can find more opportunities and get in the field. We do offer, as Dylan said, the digital membership is entirely free for all the elite members. If you decide that you want to have personal hunt consultations and talk to an advisor, we offer a discount where you can upgrade $85 a year, and you can be talking to a hunt advisor about any over-the-counter hunt, leftover hunt, or draw tag hunt that you want. So pretty neat opportunity. Please use us and try to get as much info out of us and our other members as you can. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and that, upselling to be able to talk to these folks, like, Garth himself helped me a lot with Colorado this year. I mean, it's an invaluable, access that you have to those folks there with a ton of different knowledge. And a lot of it is firsthand knowledge. It's not just, well, statistically, you're better off to hunt here because here's what the numbers say. It's like, oh, Robert or Garth or Austin or one of the individuals there has more than likely hunted that unit or been in that area. So it's a lot of firsthand knowledge. And yeah, in my opinion, that's a no-brainer to just go ahead and get that one.
I think Dylan's got a giveaway.
Yeah, so we are going to give away some shirts. For those of you who are still on here, it's free, super easy to enter. There's a link there, and then also we will drop the link in the chat. I think all you have to do is put like your first name, last name, maybe an email address, and then we'll be giving away a bunch of those shirts. So the giveaway will close for entries tonight. So again, for the folks that are watching this on YouTube after the fact, we've had a few people reach out to us after and watching it late on YouTube, ask us how to do the giveaway. It will be closed if you're not here live in person. But yeah, just wanted to throw in a few shirts for giving away there.
All right.
Perfect. And I know we answered a ton of questions throughout. I mean, I saw a lot of questions that came in even prior to the webinar that you guys did a really good job of answering, throughout. Do you guys have a few minutes to answer a couple more here? I've got a short list.
You bet.
Perfect. And like I said, most of these were answered to some regard, but first one here, are there any over-the-counter opportunities for pronghorn at all?
Kind of. So there is an over-the-counter archery tag in Colorado that I know of that has some western units on it that have public land. A lot of them are on the eastern side in the plains. That is primarily private, but there are a few units that are included in that list of over-the-counter archery antelope tags, especially like down in the grasslands in the bottom part of the state, that you can take advantage of. I mean, one of our hunt advisors here, Stan, he went on that hunt here a few years back, and he's like, man, it was a cool hunt. Saw antelope on public land, was able to stalk antelope on public land. Obviously, it's a little bit tough. I don't know. I mean, as far as that's one of the main ones I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like, we talk a lot about South Dakota and Nebraska, and that mainly falls under the archery category.
Right.
If you're willing to do archery, there's some other things you need to be looking at, especially like the 900 tag in Montana that is a draw, but easy to get, right?
Correct.
If you're wanting to go rifle, antelope are managed so strict in all these states, you're going to have to play in the draw or leftover type.
All of them are easy to get. You just have to plan ahead.
Yeah, and I think antelope too, at least in Montana, is one of those that definitely not going away, but trending, it's getting more and more difficult. I mean, growing up in eastern Montana, if you wanted an antelope tag as a resident in that area, you got one. If it wasn't 100%, it was 99.9. And now, I mean, I know of folks, and I didn't draw for the third year in a row for what used to be a guaranteed tag, and with I had 2 points. So yeah, it's trending that way. So definitely, if I'd say Montana specifically, if you want to come to Montana to antelope hunt, don't wait, because it's only getting harder.
No.
So another one here, what are some good options for cow elk? Is there any that kind of jump out at you guys as good states or good opportunities for cow?
Well, a lot of these states that we talked about that have leftover tags will have leftover cow elk tags. Specifically like Colorado has a lot of leftover cow tags. If you're doing archery, there's a lot of opportunity for archery cow. Like rifle, that's going to be a little bit more controlled for the most part. But like we touched on earlier, if you just want to hunt cow elk archery, a lot of people don't realize that you can come to Utah, and if you just want to fill the freezer, you can stalk cows. I mean, in most of these limited entry or controlled units during that archery hunt every day, dang near.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for archery hunters for over-the-counter cow hunting.
There really is. I think sometimes cow hunting gets put under the wrong light, that I want to just roll up with my rifle and see a herd of cows and shoot one and load it up in the truck. And you realize that everybody wants to do that, and they want it to be just that easy. But if you need an easy hunt like that, you're probably going to have to pay a trespass fee or go with an outfitter that offers, say, a $1,500 cow elk hunt to do something that way. the opportunities, I guess what I'm saying is on public land for a rifle cow elk hunt, you're probably gonna have to jump through some hoops to get that permit or pay a substantially high non-resident fee for the license based on
Yeah.
what state it is.
Yeah, realistically, I think right now your best opportunity for cow hunts, if you want a rifle cow hunt, to check out that secondary draw, look at that list, see what's available. I know a lot of those units up in the northern portion where they feel like they have an overabundance of cows. Yeah, I mean, there's probably, you'll probably draw a tag in it. But as Austin said, they ain't going to be standing there.
No.
They're going to be heading for the hills, and there's a reason there's leftover tags, because they give a lot of them.
Next one on the list here. What is the most affordable either sex elk over the counter tag? And I'm sure it was kind of in one of those slides. If you were paying attention to the cost of those, but just
Yeah.
most inexpensive either sex elk tag.
Either sex is probably going to be boiled down to archery, I'm assuming.
That's what it would to me, so I'd turn to
What-
Utah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Utah was about the cheapest. I
for a
can't,
balance of success and cheap.
yeah, I can't remember what Oregon was. Oregon's pretty cheap too, but like you say, when you're trying to balance success and cheapness of that tag, that Utah either sex archery tag's going to be dang hard to beat.
Gotcha. And like you guys said, so if you applied for Utah, like I did, all you'd have to do is purchase that tag, right? Because you have to have that base license already to apply. So you would just purchase that tag.
Yep.
And there's no
Okay.
quota on those archery tags in Utah. So you could buy it when you get here at Walmart and then head out into the hills.
It could be your last minute of the last minute plan.
Yep.
And you can purchase those in season, or it's got to be prior.
In season.
In season.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. Let's see. Is it better to apply for an area with a higher harvest rate or more available tags, in your opinion?
I guess that's what you
Mhm.
want the outcome to be, I guess. Like, I don't know. So, like from a standpoint of harvesting an animal or getting the tag, I wonder.
I'm not certain how that one was worded, but yeah, that definitely changes a little bit. You know, if you're looking for success, that's going to dictate your answer versus just I want to go hunting and, you know, I have an opportunity to fill the freezer. I think that probably answers that.
Yeah, typically what I would say is anytime you add hunting pressure or more tags to the situation, your harvest success is probably going to drop a little bit because it adds pressure to those animals and they're just going to be hard to come by. So if you're looking for better harvest success, I think I would go the other route and I would look for fewer tags. If you just want the tag, I mean, obviously, you know, you just go for the one with the higher tag numbers if, you know, that assures you a little bit more of an opportunity to go hunting.
Yeah.
Yep. You guys on your end there, do you guys have any good questions that came through?
Yeah, there's been a few questions about New Mexico. Is, you know, there are a few leftovers in New Mexico, mainly for white-tailed deer, but they give those permits to residents before any non-residents can purchase, so they are just gone.
24 hours. Is that
Right
what it
out
is?
of the gate, yeah.
24
Residents take
hours.
them all, so no non-residents get any chance at a leftover tag in New Mexico. However, there are landowner authorizations. And what that allows you to do is bypass the draw, purchase a landowner tag, and validate that for a license for that species. Those are going to be, you know, season specific, weapon specific, depending on which one you're going after. The most abundant landowner tags are for elk. The prices are not cheap. So this is definitely not a cheap way to get in. The prices are higher than they've ever been. But if you really want to buy a New Mexico landowner tag, the landowners just received their authorizations a couple weeks ago. So they're still fresh. There's a lot of little auctions going on, bid wars, everything else. But if you do want to go to New Mexico, that can be a last minute, find an outfitter or try to hustle the list yourself and purchase an authorization. That is an option. Same thing with Colorado. When you jump over to landowner tags, we have a listing on our website right now where landowners can list their available vouchers for free. If you buy one of those, that allows you to have that permit without touching your points in Colorado, and you can go. They're not cheap. They're more expensive than they've ever been, like most things that we're used to today. But if you do want to go to Colorado or New Mexico, there are a few options left out there.
It's definitely cheaper in Colorado than New Mexico if you're going down the landowner tag route, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to pay a lot less for an elk tag in Colorado. I think the only caveat to any of that is I think you can buy an over-the-counter tag for antelope if you got a buddy down there that has a 400-acre ranch and he's got some antelope running around on it and wants you to come down and shoot them. I think you can buy an over-the-counter tag technically for that, but
Private land only.
yeah, it's private land only.
Yeah, generally, we're looking towards public land and stuff you can go on
Yeah.
on your own. One other question we had, Dylan, was about the Utah over-the-counter elk. I think it's a good one. Does over-the-counter elk purge your points and put you in a waiting period? It's a good question. Utah considers our limited entry elk and general season elk as almost separate species. Now, you can't hold 2 elk permits, in
Right.
1 year for bulls, but you can have an over-the-counter permit, come down here and kill an elk, and that does not affect your waiting period for limited entry, nor does it affect any bonus points you have for limited entry. So good one to keep in mind that it's not gonna take you out of that.
No.
One question I have on the landowner tags, does that, I mean, it might vary Colorado to New Mexico, but does that allow you to hunt that unit, or are you restricted within that private property boundary? What are the limitations of that?
So there's 2 different types of tags in Colorado. You have a unit-wide tag, which they call a unrestricted tag, and you have a private land only tag, which they call a restricted tag. Basically, the unit-wide is what it says. You can hunt anywhere in the unit, including that person's private property that he used to secure that landowner tag. You are afforded that opportunity. Doesn't mean you can hunt all of his ranch if he only used, 80 acres or 200 acres to get that tag, but you can hunt that piece of private. But then in addition to that, you can hunt any public land within that unit. The private land only basically is what it says. The only private that you're assured to be able to hunt is whatever piece of private that landowner used to secure that permit and apply there. But that doesn't mean you can go hunt that guy's neighbor. You can't hunt his property or any private property. You still have to get permission to hunt anybody else's private property, even though it's a private land only tag. So, but in New Mexico, I believe there's a similar same type of deal. The only difference is if you get a unit-wide tag from a landowner there, or a unit-wide voucher from a landowner there, he has to offer up that private land he used to secure that voucher to everybody else that has a tag in the unit. So it's not like you're getting some special little niche of private to hunt just because you bought his landowner tag. Everyone that has that tag, including public draw guys, if he gets a unit-wide tag, everyone else can hunt his private too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. So technically you could purchase a landowner tag and then end up paying a trespass fee to be able to hunt that tag on somebody else's private land.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, interesting. Cool. Any other good ones on your guys' end?
I don't have any other ones.
Cool. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up for us on our end as well. Like I said, a lot of those questions were answered throughout. And as I mentioned, it will be on our onX Hunt YouTube after the fact, so you can reference, share it with buddies that you think missed out that weren't on this live portion of the webinar. It will be accessible through onX Hunt YouTube. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody again for taking the time out of their evening, especially Huntin Fool. They are a wealth of knowledge every time we talk with them. I know I learn a ton, and I'm sure a lot of you folks still on and were on during the webinar learned a lot as well. Hopefully it helped you guys pick up a few extra tags this year and spend more time out in the fall. So unless you guys have anything additional to add, thanks for joining.
Yeah, I think we're good. We appreciate it.
Cool. Awesome.
let
Well,
us-
thank you guys.
Let us help you, and let's get some hunts on the books for this year.
Yep. Upgrade to that and give them a call. See you guys. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.